Welcome so much to another episode of our podcast, A Chat with Agata. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Agata Langer and I am a relationship coach. And I help women break cycles of conflict in their relationships so they can finally feel valued and appreciated and loved and like they actually matter. And when I say healing relationships and that I work on relationships, it's not actually just the relationship that you have with your partner or maybe your parents, your child. Yes, it's all about those, but actually healing those relationships with other people is just a byproduct of healing the relationship that you have with self. This is something that I have discovered a long time ago, and I just want to share it with the world because it's not common news. It's really not, and it was just a beautiful breakthrough and a transformation that took me to this point where I can share it with the world and share it with other women and actually make those transformation and sustainable changes in their life and in their inner world and their self-discovery process. It's just a beautiful thing, and I feel really blessed that I can share it with you and guide you along the way. So coming back to today's topic, we are going to be talking about the life purpose, about how our life is actually designed from the metaphysical standpoint of view. Yes, so as you can see, this might be triggering for a lot of you, and some of you might be like, oh, I don't think I want to hear it, because it will not resonate with you. And I know there is a lot of very thick and dense programming that or belief systems that are installed by our culture and by religion that might be putting up like a block or wall in front of you and saying, no, I don't want to hear it because it just sounds scary. And I get that, and I absolutely get it because I was in that place too. If you decide to listen to what I have to say with just an open mind, again, I'm not here to convince you or to convert you into thinking otherwise, but those things happen that we listen to something and it might just resonate with you just a little bit, and you might open like a crack in the window of your mind and be like, okay, so if that really was that way, then how would that change my life? How would that change the perspective with which I look on my life? And this is exactly what happened for me. And I'll tell you my story, but just like I mentioned, it might be triggering to you. So and for some other people it might be like, yeah, I already know that. This is like, thank you for the reminder, thank you for what are you saying, it's already common news for me. Okay, so I think I will start with my story of how it all happened, because it was that moment that I remember vividly. And it's just so funny because the moments that make huge impact on our lives, we tend to remember like it was yesterday. And I really do remember like it was yesterday. I was back then when it happened, I remember her name was Amanda. And Amanda was an energy healer, and I think she did like tarot card readings, those kind of things. And then I was a photographer, and I was invited to kind of display my services at that event, and she was there. And I remember chatting with her, or maybe she was talking to somebody else. I don't remember that exactly, but I know she was telling a story of a woman who suddenly got like a really big pain in her shoulder. And it came on suddenly. I think she was maybe in her 40s. Like, there was no reason for it. There was no accident, no physical trauma to her body. And she didn't understand where the pain in her shoulder came from. And she was saying that she was working with her, and she discovered that in the past life, she was actually stabbed in that place, and that trauma just kind of reappeared. Like her body started remembering that trauma from the past life experience. And I remember when I listened to it, it was so scary to me, because suddenly somebody was talking about past lives, and I'm like, holy, I don't want to hear it. I got so quiet. I got so withdrawn. I was like, who is this woman? Like, this was just putting all my beliefs upside down. Back then, I was still very much closely connected with the Roman Catholic Church. And again, as far as the religion versus spirituality, I would like to make a separate episode about this, not so much for today, but yeah, but I remember it was a very scary moment to me, and I didn't know how to reply to it. I kind of sort of was playing just aloof to the whole situation, but nonetheless, something must have resonated with me when she said that. It was like almost like she planted the seed in me, because I could not forget about this. It was just like playing in my mind over and over again. And I was like, what do you mean past lives? Like, what do you mean we have only one life? We have only one chance in this life, and then we go to hell or to heaven, right? Like that's what it is. That's what I believe. That's what it was. So some time have passed, and then yes, and then that moment when I reached for the book, or the book came, somehow appeared. I think it was E Squared by Pam Grout, if you guys want to read it. I think that was one of the first books that I ever read. And then it was so many other books on spirituality that made me open up, and it started resonating with me. And here's the thing: when something starts resonating with you, that means that your inner knowing is awakening. That means that you finally remember something that you have just forgotten. And I'll explain that a little bit later. But when you listen to something and something like really strikes a chord and be like, oh wow, well that's interesting, right? Then listen to that voice. Listen, because there's something for you. You're starting to remember things. You're starting to remember things that your soul knows, but you as a human being in this reincarnation here, or this incarnation and reincarnation too, on earth, that your human self, or that sometimes we refer it as the little self, have forgot, right? Have forgotten. So listen to that. Go deeper into that. Don't be afraid to receive new information. It's not like you suddenly have to change your life, and suddenly your life is going to be different, or you're going to become somebody different. It doesn't happen like that, but it does open a path for your brain to accept information that you already know, you have just forgotten. So follow those breadcrumbs. Don't be afraid to do that, because it will lead to a bigger transformation. And so what it leads me to saying is, let's just talk about how we actually design this life here on earth. And yes, no, it's not random. And I want to also make that connection, how it looks as far as relationships go, right? Because we talk about relationships a lot with self and others, but I want to make that connection for you. So first of all, yes, our life is absolutely not random, because if it was, it just wouldn't actually make sense. And I think that's where a lot of people really struggle, because they walk through life, and yes, we go through the notions of going to school, and then maybe college, getting a job, developing our career, maybe having kids, all those things. Like, we're going through those notions, and once in a while we stop and we're like, why am I doing this all for? Like, what is this life really all about? Is this really about just me getting a job and working those 9 hours? Or maybe you're the person who works 50-60 hours a week and then suddenly stops and be like, okay, is this really what there is to life? Is that how my life is supposed to look like, right? So once in a while we kind of stop and we ask that question, what the heck is life all about? Like, I don't get it. It doesn't make sense. And yes, it doesn't make sense on a lot of levels, because we don't really realize, we don't really know what the life is all about, and what we actually had designed the life to be, so that it can help us with our spiritual growth. So again, coming back, I have to sometimes reel myself out in. I feel like I just go too many tangents and I have to reel myself in. So life is not random. We as souls, part of the cosmos, right? We actually design our incarnations. And it doesn't have to be on Earth. It can be, yes, in different places. We design them so that they can be like a playground or like a stage set up for our spiritual development and growth as a soul. So we set it all up. You can imagine, you sit there with your soul family, right? Which is usually the family that you have, or maybe your closest friends. We kind of interchange like what roles we're going to be playing. So imagine it's almost like sitting and building a new movie, right? You just want to get a new movie out there, and you're thinking, okay, what is the script? What is the plot going to be? Who are going to be the main characters? What's going to be the result of the whole, like, what's the point of the movie, right? So this is exactly how we design our life. And we sit there with other actors, let's say with our soul family, and we say, you know what, I would like to use this incarnation on Earth so that I can learn how to love myself. And another person will be like, okay, well, and I want to use this incarnation so that I can realize that serving other people is very like fulfilling, and it's really going to help me to grow as a soul, right? And each of you kind of, and it doesn't have to be one thing that you learn, because we have a lot of lessons here, so it might be like a list you'll make, right? And then you discuss what roles are gonna be best for you so that you can learn that. So I might say, okay, so for me, I want to be the person that is born in Poland, right? Because I was born in Poland and raised in Poland. And then I'm going to come to the United States, and then I'm not going to expect it, but I'll meet my husband, and my husband is going to be this for me, or is going to be behaving this for me, so that he can show me or push on the triggers in me that are saying I don't love myself, right? Or he's going to be behaving in the way that is going to be taken by me as maybe disrespectful, right? And that's all to show me, to cause that pain inside of me, to trigger me on the inside, so that I can finally wake up and go like, okay, well, maybe it's not about my husband doing this. Maybe it's just he's pushing on certain wounds inside of me that are telling me and directing me to the place that needs healing, that the places that need my attention. So, and this is exactly how we design our life. So I might sit with my mom, right? And be like, okay, so I am going to be the mom who is not going to show you tenderness, and I'm going to love you, and I'm going to provide for you, but I am not going to be that mom overflowing with love, so that you can see how you can love yourself without the outer circumstances showing you the love, right? So how you can find that love inside of you, how you can choose to love yourself despite the fact that other people might not show you the love, and might not show you how to be affectionate, right? Or how to take affection. So it's almost like that web, right, of characters, and each of the characters is choosing, okay, this is what I want to work on, and then they come into a contract with another person and say, okay, so what can you do for me that will make me understand and come to certain conclusions, and start that healing of myself or my own soul? What can you do for me? And then we reverse it. What can I do for you? What role am I going to be playing in your life, right? So guys, so just to take a small breather here before we continue on. Like, isn't that freaking amazing? Like, first of all, when I heard this information, it resonated with me so much. It was almost like I was awakening from a coma and suddenly remember things. And you might have never experienced spiritual awakening or that physical awakening when you maybe were in a coma, right? Because not so many people actually go through that physical being in a coma experience. But you've watched movies. There's like hundreds if not thousands of movies that show how a character kind of forgets, maybe they're in an accident and then suddenly they starting to remember those small snippets of things, and it's like almost takes your breath away. And this is exactly what happened to me when I started digging into that, because it resonated with me so much. And it resonated because it finally started making sense. I was like, oh my God, that's why my husband is like this. That's why my mom, that's why this happened in my life. So all those questions that I have been asking of why did this happen? Why does my life have to look like? Why this person has this life and I can't have that? Or why my life is just so much different? Or why am I this kind of person and not that kind of person? And all those questions that I have had along the lives, they finally got answered. And it was a relief, a huge relief, because suddenly all the pieces click, 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 they started just clicking all together, right? And not only that, it was that sensation of peace. Like, oh my God, I am not like just a random person here, and I'm not just gonna die and disappear. There's something more behind it. It was just that deep sense of peace and calm. And also, it was very empowering. Why it was empowering? Because it just didn't feel random anymore. It felt like, okay, I have designed this experience. I actually chose this. This was my free will to come here. Nobody pushed me out here and went like, you're going into this life. No, it was me. So wait a second, if that was me, then there is a reason behind it. Yay! So now that I know all the reasons and why things were happening this or that way, no, I had no clue. And many of us don't know that, but you will a month or a year from now or a few, like, so just to give you an example, I had no clue why my marriage was falling apart and why I got into a relationship where I didn't feel appreciated, and that my husband kept telling me, like, I would be complaining to him that I am overextending myself and I am giving you guys all I have and I never take time for myself, right? That was my main complaint. And you don't see it, you don't appreciate it. And I was like, well, I'm taking care of my kids. And he would tell me, well, you can go send them to a daycare. And I was like, no, I don't want to do that. I want to be taking care of my kids. Okay, well then don't complain about it, right? And it was this constant battle, or like tug of war between me and my husband, because he would have an answer for me and he would even tell me, like, listen, you're really projecting your unhappiness on me. And I was like, what do you effing mean? Excuse my French. Right? Like, what do you mean I'm projecting? I'm unhappy and you're the reason for it, because you don't appreciate me and you don't help me and you don't do this and this and blah 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 blah. So at that point I had no clue why this was all happening, why I almost came to the point where we divorced, me calling divorce lawyers, right? I didn't know, but now I do, and it's years later, and it's because I can share this with you guys. And yes, not everybody's story is going to be the same. For me, I am a natural and born teacher. I have the need to share my knowledge, my breakthroughs with others, so that I can not only educate, but actually give you tools or give you the knowledge that's necessary for you to make shifts, or mind shifts, or just any kind of transformation in your life. Because one of my purposes in life is service. So whether it's what I'm doing right now or serving people in any other way, it's going always to be that kind of pull for me to serve. This is one of my life purposes, and for everybody else it might be different because we choose that. So now I can see I chose that. I chose that path that I had with my husband, so I can go through it, so I can test it all out, so I can make all those realizations along the way, and I can put it all together and then give it to you guys, to anybody who wants to listen, and to anybody who will resonate with what I'm saying and can actually benefit from it, right? So this was my path, and this just makes sense to me like nothing before. But again, it took years, and I mean I've been married for 20 years already, right? So, and by the time our relationship, like, I could see it was really falling apart to the time that I've decided I want to coach, it was probably about 10 years. So that's a good chunk of life, right? But yeah, so I hope that what I'm saying is resonating just maybe a tiny little bit. And if not, maybe it's just planting a seed in your awakening. And what is soul awakening? Because you might have heard this term before, soul awakening. This is exactly the time that the soul starts remembering what it's really here for, who that soul is, that true essence, remembering more than what is visible to us with our senses, right? Because we can see our body, and as far as our soul, like, we kind of know that there must be some other thing, like, higher than us, that is breathing the life into that body, right? And a lot of times we call it soul, our soul, yes, but do we see it? No, we don't see it. We just see our body. So awakening is that part where you're like, okay, I must be more than just my body. There must be something more than just what I can see. Because the body will die. It's almost like the costume, right, that we put on when we go on stage. If you've ever been into a theater, you know that actors put the costumes on and they play a certain role, and then they take the costumes off, and then they kind of go home. So for us, it's the same thing. Instead of our costume is our body, and then when we go home, we go back home to the source, because that's a part of us, like that's us, the source or the creator, God, you might call, like, different names for it, right? Yes, we go back, and do I know exactly how it all goes back then? No, but I don't. But little by little, those pieces are being uncovered for me, from either different channels or just like knowing. But do I also have to know? No, I don't. Like, I'm okay with knowing what I'm here for, and I can fully embody my role, and I can feel just confident in it, and I can look at my life lessons as something kind of, yes, I want to say fun. I'll tell you, a lot of times I'm way too serious as far as this life goes. This is something that I know is one of my life lessons, to take it more as fun and play, and really not get so stuck in that rigidness, right? That's one of my lessons. You might be in the same boat too, if you're listening to it. But let's go back also. Oh, okay. No, I want to finish my thought on that awakening and on that amnesia. Because one of the things that I don't think I made clear, and I apologize for it, I'm going to finish that thought, is that when we come here and when we incarnate on this earth, we get what we might call amnesia, or like the spiritual amnesia. When we totally forget about our soul essence, about our purpose here on earth, about what lessons we're going to be going through, and we forget that we signed all those contracts with other souls so that they can behave certain way or be somebody for us, so that we can awaken into our own healing, right? We forget about all of it So if you've ever experienced spiritual awakening, that's like your soul finally getting out of that coma, out of that amnesia, right? That's your soul remembering those little pieces. And by the way, another fun thing to remember, that once you're on the path of that spiritual awakening, you just want more, because you get hungry for more, like you haven't eaten in 100 years. This is exactly how it feels. You kind of go that rabbit hole and you just want to gather as much information as possible, because you're hungry for knowledge. You're hungry to finally know who you really are. And just a reminder too, a lot of times you might be asking a question, okay, so if that's who I am, like, why do I don't like myself? Or you can even use the word hate myself so much, or why do I hate my life so much? Or, so here's the thing, when we incarnate here, we work with a lot of obstacles and challenges. That might be our past programming, that might be what we received from our ancestors, because there is such a thing as cell memory, right? So our cells remember all those either traumas or programs or experiences, and we kind of carry that on. And we also work with our ego, which you might call your little self, your ego or your little self. And then there's that high self or higher self that knows it all, that remembers it all, that knows exactly who you are. And guess what? You have the connection with your higher self at all times. That connection may be a little distorted when we're closed off, when we're really in that pain, and when we don't open ourselves up with the right questions, and where a lot of times we are disconnected. And maybe I'll do a separate episode on the disconnection and how to connect back to your higher self and to listen and to get those messages so that you can be guided. Because the thing is that you think that your whole soul is like right here in this body, and it's actually not. So we only take a certain percent of our energy, of that soul energy that we have, a certain, and it's different for everybody, but I want to say 20-ish might be an average, maybe between 20-30%, maybe less, is that energy that we send here on earth so that we can operate, right? But the rest of us, of that energy, stays up there so that it can guide us. So our higher self is our higher guidance. And a lot of times you might be, okay, so what is it really? Okay, so if you ever got that intuitive hint, like even if it was as simple as you walking down the street and you normally take this way to go to your bus stop or to go to work or a grocery store, right? And suddenly you're like, no, for some reason I have to go here. I have to make a right instead of a left. I don't know why. And you follow that. And it turns out that there was something there for you, like maybe an old friend that you haven't met in a long time, or maybe that's how you met your future spouse, right? Or maybe there was a birthday party that you like never even meant to or intended to go to, but by some weird circumstance, right, you actually did, and that's how you ended up with your soulmate, or meeting your best friend, or discovering something else. Like, so here's the thing again. All those things that we encounter along the way, they are not coincidences. Or maybe the meaning of a coincidence is just not the one that we need to have. Because those coincidences are just our higher self guiding us through life. So that we can get to those events in our life that we designed for ourselves. Because those are like those turning points in our life, those huge events, like getting married, having kids, or maybe choosing a certain career, right? Those are like those pivotal points in our lives, those crucial points that will set us on a new trajectory. And those are not coincidences. And when you start playing with that energy of, oh my God, I'm being guided, and you start listening to that intuition, and when more of those quote unquote coincidences happen in your life, you're like, oh, I'm being guided. Oh, how fun. Like, I'm not here alone. Here's another thing. We so often feel so alone, right? We feel so, we might have family, we might have friends, but really in the end, we feel so alone and lost in our life. And once you start discovering that connection, it's like, ooh, that's a fun ride. No, I'm not alone. I'm actually being guided. There's somebody who's got my back always. There's somebody who knows and has the answers. So I want to kind of finish up this episode just by again coming back to the relationship aspect of this all. And I want to give you some relief here. If you're asking those questions, why did my father drink or beat us when I was a child? Why my mom never loved me? Or maybe she did, but she didn't show me the love. Why have I lost my job? Why did my relationship end in a divorce? Why am I in those relationships that keep repeating themselves, or like the theme keeps repeating itself, right? Or why do I always fall into circumstances where people misunderstand me, when maybe they don't appreciate me, or maybe they cross my boundaries, right? Why does it always happen? So here is your answer. It happens because you chose to. First of all, you asked different players in your life, so it might be your friends, your family, to behave in a certain way so that they can highlight, and by highlight I mean cause pain, unfortunately, and highlight those places that need healing, and highlight the lessons that you came here to pass or to work through and then pass if you choose to. So the lessons are different for all of us, and the circumstances are going to be different, and the players are going to be different, right? And you might ask a question again about maybe your relationship with your spouse or your partner. Why the heck is he behaving? And it hurts me. He's hurting me. So I just want to tell you that your partner did not cause the wounds that are already in there inside of you. He didn't cause them. He's just pushing on them. He's just like almost like he's holding a mirror, or he is the mirror. So if you imagine your wounds that you already came with, you already incarnated with them, right? All those places that need healing, and that need your attention, and that you need that so that your soul can grow. And your soul needs to grow because it's a part of the whole universe, and the whole universe needs to grow, needs to expand. And by learning, when we're here, we learn, and that's how we expand. We expand our consciousness, our knowing, our understanding, our energy expands. It can do more, it can go through more, it can challenge itself, and it can just grow. And that's how the universe operates. If it stopped, then it would self-destruct, right? So now in order for you to grow, you need to go through those challenges. You need to go through those lessons. You need to learn those new things. It's just like being in school, right? Except for it's real. It's your school of life, so to say, right? It's a little bit different. But our teachers, our greatest teachers, are the ones who hurt us the most. It might be a tough pill to swallow for you to understand it, but at some point when you actually do accept that as your truth, that somebody is your greatest teacher and teaching you the most by being the harshest teacher or causing pain in you the most, then that's the point where you take your power back. That's the point where you empower yourself, because you realize that somebody is doing you a favor. Somebody's doing it for you, not to you. And then there is the part where there is something that you can do about it. Yes, instead of pointing the finger that way, you point it this way. Not to blame yourself, absolutely not, because it's not about blaming anybody. It's just about looking and focusing your energy on the right place, which is you and your healing, and not trying to change outer circumstances. So again, your partner did not put all those wounds inside of you. They're already there. That's your lessons that you set up. He's just holding that mirror. And if you think about your wounds as, or the lack of maybe knowing, understanding, anything that you're struggling with, if you think of it as frequency, as a frequency wave, right? That you always emit certain frequency. What you hold inside of you, that frequency always emit. So that your partner is holding that mirror, or is being the mirror, and the frequency kind of travels and it bounces against that mirror back to you. That's when you get triggered. That's when you're like, oh my God, this hurts. It's almost like an arrow going and pointing back at you and hitting you in those places that need healing, that hurt the most. If you imagine having a physical wound and somebody like even pokes you, little touches that wound, or somebody like bumps into you by accident, it hurts. And this is exactly how the emotional wound hurt, and the spiritual wound, this is exactly how they hurt. Somebody else is triggering that for you, again, for you, not to you. So, oh my gosh, thank you for letting me walk you through this, because I love talking about it, especially to people who are not familiar, because I know that I can be a part of your beautiful awakening, and I have been a part of many people who participated in my workshops, and they saying, well, I just started getting interested in that stuff, and I could give them so much kind of knowledge and open their eyes a little bit and their hearts a little bit more to that information. And it's just like a beautiful, it just makes me really happy that people set on that path and then they just grow and they just be more, they just want to know themselves. And this is exactly what I do through my programs. I want you to know yourself. I want you to be the best that you can be. I want you to love yourself and be like, this is who I am. Yes, let's go for it. This is my life and I am going to turn it around and I'm going to heal. That's the attitude that I love. And also on the last note, I am going to be opening one of my most popular programs, a workshops actually, not a program, because it's just a workshop. It's going to be 1 or 2 days. I am not sure. I haven't decided yet, but this is the workshop on healing your inner child. And I think I'm going to make the next podcast about what the inner child is and how we heal it and what to do with it, because you might have heard that term, but you might not quite understand. A lot of actually women who come to my workshops, they say, well, thank you for explaining this to me finally, because I've heard this before and somebody was trying to explain this to me before, but I just couldn't get it. And when they heard it from me, they finally did get it. And this is how it works again. You might hear it from one person and then second and third, and finally you hear it from somebody else and you're like, oh, I get it. I finally get it. Because there was that unique tone and unique vibration that you needed to hear that finally resonated with you, and you got that message on that heart level, right? Not just your mental level, but it finally like resonated with your truth, with your essence. So thank you so much for listening. I welcome all questions and comments, and till next time.